Hello everyone, this is Andrew and today I'll be doing something completely new to me. I'll be setting up a planted tank that will not have any goldfish in it. As much as I love my water puppies, keeping goldfish does severely limit the types of plants you can have long term. This tank will also be home to some Amano shrimp, so it will need to have a lid. This will be the first time I've had shrimp, so it's going to be a learning experience for me. If you have any expert shrimp advice, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Well, let's get started. So, believe it or not, this 30-gallon tank actually sat up in my Indianapolis attic for 25 years. When I first started using it again, I put it outside, filled it with water, and waited for a week to make sure it wouldn't leak. I did a major cleanup of the hard water deposits using a razor and Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. These things work really well, by the way. Just make sure you get the original without any cleaning chemicals added. We'll be adding 3 types of stratum to this tank. First, the same potting soil I used setting up my island aquarium, then a layer of Fluval stratum, and then a small cap of Eco Complete. So step number 1, I did a sifting of the potting soil to get out anything big that might float. I really love this stuff. I added it in and wet it down until it looked like it would be about 2 inches deep. For some reason, this is always my favorite part of setting up a new tank. I know dirt can be a pain if you like to move your plants around, but once I decide where to put a plant, I tend to just leave them in place. Next, I wanted to add about 1.5 inches of Fluval stratum. This mineral-rich clay actually comes from a Japanese volcano. How cool is that? So now I can say I have part of a Japanese volcano in my living room and in my fish room. I figure this is where the plant roots will initially take hold. But since I don't have to worry about the goldfish pulling up on them, I guess securely planting them isn't as important as it normally would be. The dirt underneath will act as a long-term supply of nutrients and help to create a natural environment. At least that's the plan. And finally, we have a cap of Eco Complete, a type of volcanic rock that does not come from Japan. I have a little on top in my sand tank, but here in this planted tank, it will cover the whole tank for about 1/2 inch or so. I might add in some small gravel at some point so it's not just all black. Next, I put in my plant order to Aquarium Co-op. Last time I ordered plants, they came the very next day from their close by store in Lexington, Kentucky. But this order got delayed an extra day because I happened to order the day before the big blue screen internet interruption thing. What are the odds? So I got to plant some of the same types I had first tried 10 years ago that all eventually got pulled up by my original goldfish. I decided on some valves and a tiger lotus bulb for the back of the tank. Then 3 types of crypts for the middle area. For the front, I decided on dwarf hairgrass, micro swords, and some dwarf sage. I'm very interested in how long it will take these plants to propagate themselves over time. Since this tank will not be housing goldfish, I decided to just go with 1 sponge filter on the left side. So that's where some water wisteria is going to go to try and hide it a bit. I've grown so used to seeing sponge filters that they seem like a natural feature to me now. I bet the Amano shrimp will like them. And of course, I also got some of Aquarium Co-op's fabled Easy Green. I've never used plant fertilizer before, but since this is going to be a very heavily planted tank, I figure I need to actually feed the plants. After 2 weeks, the tank was cycled, so I put my order into Aquatic Arts here in Indianapolis for 20 Amano shrimp. I'd watched several YouTube videos before to learn how to set up a drip acclimation system. The instructions from Aquatic Arts suggested between 1 and 3 hours. It ended up taking 2.5 hours in my setup. It's hard to count them, but it looks like there are at least 21 Amano shrimp. I used my newly purchased shrimp net to gently scoop them up and put them in the tank. This was fun to do, but I noticed a few trying to jump out of the net as I was transferring them over. All the shrimp immediately went to work foraging and exploring the tank. I guess the acclimation went well. I happened to get a little bit of brown hair algae in this tank the day before, and I could already see some of the shrimp working on it. Good little shrimps. There was still enough plant melting over the last 2 weeks that I decided to not put any food in for the first couple of days. Amano shrimp are supposed to be great algae eaters, but if there is a lot of other food in the tank, they will apparently munch on that first. Now, I know a lot of people really get into shrimp, but I had never caught that bug before. Since I always had a triggerfish in my saltwater tank, having invertebrates was never an option. But after watching these shrimp zipping around the tank, I have to say, yeah, I get it now. Shrimp really are awesome. Too bad the goldfish will eat them. Which brings us to the subject of what kind of fish will eventually go in this tank. After having my ranchus in the 40 gallons, I have to admit, I kind of prefer having them in a shorter size tank. It was always kind of awkward watching the ranchus trying to swim up and down in a tall tank. They actually seem much happier in about 12 inches of water as opposed to the 19 inches or so of the 125. And two 40-gallon tanks actually have the same surface area as a 125. So I think the plan is to split the ranchus between the two 40s and occasionally swap them back and forth. So they will spend some time in the Anubias tank and then some time in the sand tank. Which means this tank and the 125 are going to house a new kind of fish. Since they will both have Amano shrimp, they will have to have lids, which means I can keep a fish that would normally jump out of an open tank. So I've decided to give rainbow fish a shot. Probably Bozemanite for the 125, and either use this 30 as a grow-out tank for babies, or possibly one of the smaller types of rainbows like the Praycox. So that's the plan, but for now I'm just going to enjoy the antics of these fun little Amano shrimp. Now, if you're wondering why there are two food dog statues sitting on this tank, there seemed to be only one available lid option for the 36-inch by 12-inch 30-gallon tank, which it turns out was about 1/8 of an inch too small for the ancient brand that I have. As a quick fix, I cut some wooden strips for the sides. That fixed the length issue, but unfortunately it caused the plastic ends to stick up and leave a shrimp-sized gap on either end, and that's not good. But I happen to have a couple of food dog statues that fit perfectly on the ends to hold them securely down. I think they look kind of cool. So that's the story of how I set up my very first non-goldfish planted tank with Amano shrimp. Thanks for watching. I am Andrew, and as always, happy fish keeping.